A guy that I worked with at Google, he asked me a question: what is Proton Mail? This is not a advertisement for Proton Mail. This is not being endorsed by Proton Mail. I'm not getting paid by Proton Mail to do this. But the fact that he, just like I was a few years back, wasn't aware about what Proton Mail is because I was so enclosed in my silo that I didn't really know what other things are out there. I mean, no one wants to use Yahoo Mail because they've been hacked a whole bunch of times. So Gmail, okay, yeah, we gotta use Gmail. Hotmail, Microsoft Mail, I don't know, Apple, iCloud Mail, it doesn't matter. But the fact that we working at Google, we weren't really aware of what Proton Mail was just speaks much about somebody who has worked there for a decade, maybe two. So it was surprising to me that somebody who worked in this industry did not know what the competitors were doing. I guess it comes to a belief that, oh, we're the best and okay, Gmail is the only way to go. I did my diligent service to explain to him what Proton Mail was, and I guess this is why this video even came about. The same information that he asked me, I realized, well, if this is a technical person working at Google did not know this, then a lot of people won't know. So this is my best attempt to explain what Proton Mail is. Buckle up, let's go for it. Proton Mail started out in Switzerland as a crowd-funded project. They operate on the basis of serving the community that funds them instead of major stakeholders, shareholders, corporate investors, or board of directors. Silicon Valley is not part of this, and currently their business is supported by subscribers. About 10% of the total users are subscribers. The rest of 90% users are using Proton's free account options. But this speaks a lot that those 10% of users are able to keep the whole business going. The company is located out of Switzerland. They are in a very good place where the local privacy laws are in tune with Proton's vision. Unlike the US and many other governments, if any intel agencies want information on any single person, they can access your info via these companies, Google, Apple, Facebook, even without a warrant. And that makes my information very vulnerable. It makes other people's information very vulnerable. But that kind of stuff just does not fly in Switzerland. It has to be court ordered, meaning that they can just knock in, give us the info, here you go. They have to go through court before any company releases privacy information. Even if someone is wanting to do it, any intel agency or government agency want to access any information. Due to the very nature of how Proton Mail is encrypted, Proton themselves can't even access the user's information. They can't access any of the emails because that's just how their encryption works. In Switzerland, what's very cool is that there is actually a government decree, or at least a vision towards the future, is that all government software that is being used in Switzerland has to be open source, meaning the code can be fully reviewed and verified, that there are no backdoor entryways to the information as there was with Facebook and because of the Twitter files, Twitter, and any other big tech platform. And that places Proton in a very good position to do business in a country that has such a high standard of ethics in terms of protecting users' privacy. No sneaky backdoors. A question, I guess, that comes up, so how did Proton get big? Well, I don't think it's big yet, but big as it is today. Like I mentioned before, the initial project was crowdfunded, and there are so many users that actually supported it. There was an overwhelming amount of users that whatever the servers that they were using, they couldn't meet the demand. They needed to actually expand that business model, make it a paid business model so that they actually have some sort of an income coming in, because servers are expensive. You ain't going to build a server farm and then offer a free service. Obviously, that started expanding, and in order to meet the demand, they had to do that. But how did Proton get big in the era of this ads apocalypse and fake news, right when Trump was running for his first presidency? A lot of advertisers pulled out of YouTube or other big platforms, and they're like, we don't want to advertise there if you guys are, spreading fake news. But also during this era, this is when a lot of reporters adopted using Proton Mail to make sure that their sources are not being leaked, and they needed some sort of an encrypted email solution so that whoever they're talking with, whether it's a leaker, whether it's some private source, that they cannot be found out. This is what Hillary Clinton's thing was all about when she was using unsecure email servers that led to the whole Benghazi trouble. Sadly, it still hasn't been forgotten for her, but whatever, that's her issue. Because our regular email that we're using, they're not a very great encrypted protocol in the first place. The general public got an awareness of this kind of stuff, but it was accelerated, or it was, I guess, put exponentially on steroids when the whole Cambridge Analytica data breach came out, where a lot of users' information was actually compromised. The data breach refers to the unauthorized access of harvesting personal data from approximately 87 million Facebook users by the data analytics firm Cambridge Analytica. The breach occurred in 2014 to 2015, but it was not publicly disclosed until 2018. So a big deal. A lot of people were aware of that. A lot of people then became troubled by their personal data being exploited and breached, and then exploited even more. So the European privacy laws that followed Cambridge Analytica data breach were strict. This is known as GDPR, where a lot of companies had to be forced or had to comply to make sure that their product, whatever online tool product that they offered, had to be compliant to the new standards. Google caved into it. I mean, emergency meetings all over the place when this stuff was all happening, and I was there. We had to then update some of the Google Analytics education content that we've produced. And once we actually updated it, then it was in alignment to the GDPR privacy rules and protocols. We even got a bonus for it. I mean, thank you very much. Either way, a lot of companies then had to change up the way that they did online data harvesting, or what kind of data they had exposure to and what kind of data is to be shared. This is how Proton got big. In more recent years, I think in the last year, 2, maybe 3, what became very popular is email aliases. Now, I have my main email, then I have a secondary email, trinary or third email. And a lot of people have like, okay, I'll use this email for all my junk stuff. I'll use this email for all my banking stuff. I'll use this email for whatever, almost social media stuff. But either way, you're still tied into various few emails that can be easily identified, and because they're used in so many different places, the user can be tracked down, identified, and his data could be exploited. They have disposable emails, a term that is known as disposable emails. Well, Proton calls it as a hide my email aliases with their product Proton Pass. There's other companies that do this as well. NordVPN has a product where they have this as well, but Proton has the hide my email aliases with Proton Pass, their password manager. Now, what's really cool with hide my email alias thing is that it gives you a kind of different email address per whatever website you're registering for, and then it automatically forwards it to your main Proton email address. What's really cool about that is that when you start doing any conversations back and forth replies, you never have to worry to reply from that whatever disposable email is that Proton Pass has generated for you. And it doesn't matter what that Proton email even is, because you never have to remember it. It automatically goes to your main inbox and you reply out of that same inbox with whatever that email alias is. It's really cool because when you subscribe to places, you don't give them your main email address. And big tech, Google, Gmail, they hate this kind of stuff. When it comes down to online marketing and online tracking, identifying the user's journey of going to many different websites, their interests, their preferences, their histories, their likes, their what they watch, They hate this kind of stuff because it can't be tracked down to a single email address. So this is where disposable email addresses became very popular in the last few years, and more people are starting to adopt them. So much so that even places online are able to detect that, okay, this is a disposable email address, and they won't actually let you register on their website if you're using a disposable email address. Pretty interesting, but that's very rare right now. But I'm sure as the movement or that ideology continues, this method of self-protection, of this method of online privacy, there are more and more solutions that are going to come out to make sure that your stuff is not going to be detected. The more places that have your real email addresses, the more likely your info will be compromised, shared, and data harvested. The less places you have your email, the better it is. Another thing I want to talk about is the ecosystem. So apart from, I already mentioned Proton Pass, apart from Proton Email, Proton has a whole ecosystem of products that you can subscribe to in one suite. They have email, they have a virtual private network, a VPN product, they have cloud storage, so alternative to your Google Drive. They have a password manager, an encrypted calendar, and the new option is wallet, where you can encrypt your Bitcoin transactions, and that's private as well. So the whole ecosystem makes it very comfortable for you to switch from a big tech platform such like Google and migrate all your information to Proton and have all these services given to you with kind of a one price subscription fee. And I'm sure they're going to add more stuff to their line of products. They've acquired Standard Notes, a very, very cool note-taking app that's very privacy-focused, encrypted. I've been using it since I found out about it and migrated all my Google Keep notes into Standard Notes. I'll do another video on how to do that as well, but it's been very helpful. I never used Keep ever since I migrated. Now, every single company or any big tech platform is susceptible to a data breach sooner or later. The question is not if, the question is when. So recently, Proton Mail got some bad rep. Proton Mail discloses user data leading to arrests in Spain. A lot of people went crazy about this. They went crazy about this. Oh, Proton caved in. Oh, they're just like all those other big tech platforms, and they just hand everything off to the intel agencies. So what's interesting about this case is that Proton responded very, very quickly. I mean, just a few posts later. And this is what they actually say. The name and address of the terrorism suspect was actually given to police by Apple, not Proton. The terror suspect added their real-life Apple email as their optional recovery address in Proton Mail. Proton can't decrypt the data, talking about the emails, but in terror cases, Swiss courts can obtain recovery emails. So, and then they give you a support article, hey, here's how to set a recovery email option that's not tied into your regular email and stuff. And proving the point. I mean, the actual case was somebody was squatting in somebody's property, and when Proton was approached by whatever the agency's investigators to find out information about these squatters. Proton actually, we cannot give you this kind of information the way that our product works. It's encrypted in a way where we can't decrypt it. We can't give you the contents of our email. So this is when they went to Apple. Oh, this person was using their Apple email, the iCloud email, I guess, as their recovery address, and then they were able to obtain that information. So, meaning if you're using Proton, don't use your Gmail, Yahoo, whatever mainline big tech email address as a recovery option, and they give you other recovery options where it doesn't necessarily have to be another email, and it's either like a very long key phrase, encrypted code. There's various things like a file you can download somewhere and upload when you need to recover your account. It's a very cool way to do it that's not tied into any email address. So, in the case with this Spanish case, Proton, they were actually given out IP address. They did provide the IP addresses of those users, but that's not something that the authorities or the investigator people didn't already know. They knew the house that he was squatting at. Well, who cares about the IP address because they already know where he lives. But based on this court order, they gave the IP logs of the house that they already knew that the squatters were in. So in this case, like, they couldn't give out the personal information, unlike your email, like Gmail, when big intel agencies, CIA, FBI, whatever, when they need it, Google is too big of a company not to comply, and they have to comply. Again, different privacy laws in the States as compared to Switzerland, so they're able to give that information very, very easy. And so another thing that this friend of mine that worked at Google also asked, so isn't Google focusing on a lot on making their email private or their product private? So I kind of replied, it's a yes and no, and both answers are right, but it all depends how privacy is defined. Privacy is defined very different by each one of those companies. You know, if you ask Google what privacy means, Apple what privacy means, and Facebook what privacy means, you might get a very different variation of what privacy means. But it all is a great definition that caters to their business strategy, their business goals, and their way of running their product. The best way to actually put it is here Andy Yen talk about privacy himself. Let's play that video for you for a second.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Apple, right? Because big tech companies, what they're trying to do right now is something I call privacy washing.
Privacy washing. I've never heard of that term. Let's see what privacy washing is.
Which is, if you're not going to be private, the next best thing you can do is change what privacy means.
Okay, so again, redefining what the privacy means in order that it helps their business model do what they do.
So when Google talks about privacy, and they talk about it at every single Google I/O, it's like the main theme of every single talk, right? But if you look at what Google actually means when they say privacy, well, the definition that they're actually giving is, we're going to give you more options on how we abuse your data.
So if you actually read all the Google's terms, you'd be, crazy. Your mind would go crazy how much information is being collected on you. But that's a whole separate video. If you want to do it, go ahead and read it. Let's see what it says about Apple.
That's what privacy means to Google, right? And Apple has its own definition. Apple's definition is, we want to be the only ones who can abuse your data. So, Apple says, we're going to disable third-party cookies, third-party trackers. And my response is, well, I'm not so concerned about the third-party trackers, right? It's the first-party ones that actually are a lot worse. And the true definition of privacy is actually no one can abuse your data, period.
With that said, I think that's a very good way to round up what privacy means. No one can abuse your data, period. They know that your name, your username, because you subscribe to them, maybe your credit card information that you paid with, but they cannot access the content of your emails, as opposed to a Gmail or maybe other email providers that I don't use or haven't used. They literally can scan all the contents of your email and intimately, based on how you interact with people, know you very, very, very well. And therefore, some people complain, why am I getting ads even in Google Gmail? I mean, this is because your data is being accessed, and based on what you're interested in, based on the receipts that come in from what you're buying, you are getting ads. And based on your view history on YouTube, it all ties in, and that information gives advertisers the potential way to advertise to you based on your interest. So one of the things that I want to mention about Proton email is that they are very present at the moment and very helpful. So even in the case of this Spanish case where the IP address was leaked and given away, I've noticed just following them on LinkedIn, anytime that Proton is mentioned in any LinkedIn post, the people at Proton are very, very quick to respond. If they don't do it that same hour, it's probably that same day for sure. Just imagine somebody from Google or responding to something that they posted online. I don't see too much of that, or if it is, it's very generic, very markety, cliche, and non-answer, or sends you to a support article that it doesn't really help you in the first place. Not to say that all their support articles suck. They're actually very good, and they spend a very intentional amount of focus in order to make sure that they're as brief as possible yet understandable as possible, so that users actually get their answers answered. But Proton is very helpful, and it's a very organic presence where their content is not generic, but they actually teach you very good stuff with the stuff that they reply on posts and the kind of posts that they put up. I mean, I've learned very good things about just general internet privacy just from Proton posts that in compared to some other people in the companies in the same space. I'm not even talking about the big tech giants. Other companies in the privacy space, they're definitely killing it in their marketing game, and you know who you are. The highest of fives to you. And another thing to consider is that this year they switched up to a new business model. Their future of Proton is actually going to be a non-profit. So why is this transition important? Is because somehow the way that the non-profit organizations work in Switzerland is that they always need to adhere to the original mission, to the original goal of their organization. So one paragraph that really stuck out is this: however, adopting a Swiss non-profit structure provides additional security, which a corporation cannot achieve. Because Proton has no venture capital investors, we can take this additional step to secure the future. Swiss foundations do not have shareholders, so Proton will no longer be dependent upon the goodwill of any particular person or group of persons. Instead, Swiss foundations and their board of trustees are legally obligated to act in accordance with the purpose for which they were established, which in this case is to defend Proton's original mission. As the largest voting shareholder of Proton, no change of control can occur without the consent of the foundation, allowing it to block hostile takeovers of Proton, thereby ensuring permanent adherence to the vision. So if you want to, take some time to read about Proton's vision and their user-centric, privacy-respecting vision of the future of the internet. That is very dear to my heart, actually, coming out of Soviet Union and knowing how much data can be used and abused, and then being inside Google and seeing how much data is collected on people. That's not the future that I want to live in. That's not the future where all my data can be accessed by various agencies at the very easy switch. When laws change or when an extreme thing happens, that all that stuff becomes vulnerable and up for grabs at a very easy, convenient way. Hey, so we can talk about privacy all day long. I mean, there's so many things to cover, but one thing I want to communicate at the end of this video, as I've gave connotations to it in the previous pieces of content, is that I believe in God, and I know that Jesus Christ, He knows. There isn't a single privacy thing that I can do in order to hide away from Him, because He knows my thoughts, He knows my heart, He knows my motives, He knows my deeds, He knows the things I say. So if there's anything that I can do is to walk pure before Him, seek Him, and allow Him to really change my heart continually, mold me into a better person, so that there's nothing that I need to hide. And I know that one day, even what my belief in Him may be used against me, but that's the one thing I want to make sure I'm cool with and straightened away with, is that I'm pure before Him, and knowing that He's the intercessor. Even if there are sinful things or bad things in my life, I know that because of my faith in Him, He will stand and intercede for me on my behalf, such as He already did by dying for me, for my sins on the cross. And if there's anything out of this video, I mean, that's the most important thing. Forget all the privacy things. Be cool with Jesus. Be straight with Him. Seek Him. Repent before Him. And you know that in Him we have life everlasting. So apart from that, I hope that this video was very beneficial to you, that you learned a few things about Proton Mail, and maybe possible in the near future you can start using it as well, because I found it to be a very helpful, cool product that I don't know how in the world that I used free Gmail before Proton. I find so many benefits of using this, and I hope you will too. So until next time, I'll see you.